sbagliata, messa fuori, c'è Pirlo, ancora Pirlo di tacco, tiro, gol! Grosso, gol di Grosso, manca un minuto, gol di Grosso.
Hello and welcome to the Milan Talk podcast. I'm your host Samit Paul, and I'm delighted to say we've got a special Q&A podcast today, and I'm joined by my good friend Jason Brown. Jace, long time no speak. How you doing?
Yeah, mate, it's been a while. I'm doing well, thank you.
Good man. Glad to have you back. Right, so as we reach the halfway point in the season and with the new year upon us, we'll be looking back at the first half of the campaign and assessing how Milan have fared thus far, while also answering your questions and reading your comments. So Jace, let's kick things off with how Milan have done on the pitch firstly, and I want to look at specifically Serie A to start with. 18 games played, 7 wins, 3 draws, 8 losses. That's 24 points, which leaves us in 11th place. Not quite where we wanted to be or where we expected to be this season. Obviously thinking back to our pre-season podcasts where we were discussing top 4, I think we both kind of settled on maybe just sneaking in 4th place, possibly 3rd if we're lucky. We had a few comments and votes on the polls suggesting that we could even win the title. Obviously, that's a long, long way off now. Overriding feeling, of course, is just a real sense of disappointment, surely, just that we haven't even got close to where we want to be this season.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's always disappointing when you've got more losses than wins. Obviously, as well, like you said, the expectation as well being so high, and it just kind of makes it even worse, the fact that we just haven't delivered. But it's hard to put to quantify how much of a massive disappointment it is. For me personally, I was pretty certain we were going to use this season to get back into the Champions League, solidify the new squad, with so many players coming in, and then next season be the one where we really push for that title. But it looks like we're going to have to rebuild again from scratch, and it's obviously the issues with the manager. You don't know what's going on, but it's been massively disappointing so far. Hopefully, maybe we can turn it around towards the back end and put a pretty good run together and salvage something from the season. But at the minute, it's looking dire.
Yeah, it really is. I think you're spot on. I think after getting back into Europe, the way that we kind of made progress last season under Montella, it looked like we were heading in the right direction finally. And then all of a sudden, like I said, it's almost like, well, we may lose players in the summer, then are we going to have to rebuild the whole thing again? And it looks like we've just taken a massive backward step. So, massively disappointing on that front. In terms of the biggest issue, Jace, what has it been for you? We've lost Montella. Gattuso's come in. For me, the biggest frustration with him so far is just him going for the same players in terms of using Montalivo in midfield when, for me, he should have played his last game for Milan about 5 years ago. Abate's been used as well. We've seen the sort of push to get the youngsters coming through. It's been a bit stunted for me this season. Calabria's played less, Locatelli's played less. Obviously, we've had the emergence, Catrone. But for me, it's not really gone the way that I'd hoped under Gattuso either. I know it's been difficult in terms of picking up where Montella left off. The good thing is, I guess, is that Gattuso's ditched the back 3. But what do you put it down to? Do you put it down to the players not delivering, the signings coming in, not, again, talking about expectations? Have they not delivered on those expectations? Did we sign too many players in the summer? Has it all just kind of disrupted the progress that we were making last season, moving away from the kind of youth push and relying on key individuals? Or do you put it down solely to Montella being, in and over his head and Gattuso just not being good enough? Or is it a combination of all those factors, Jace? What's the biggest issue for you?
I think, yeah, like you say, a combination of all those things probably. But I think the biggest issue is the players really just not putting their effort in, or probably not being managed as well as they could be. Because I think, like you say, we did buy a lot of players. I don't think that's necessarily an issue. We've seen that happen before at other teams, maybe not in Serie A to that scale, but definitely in the Premier League, we've seen 8 or 9 players come in. At City, I remember a few seasons ago under Mark Hughes, I think he brought about 7 or 8 players, and they didn't do amazing, but they kind of built on where they had been. They did move forward. So I think buying a lot of players isn't the main issue. I just think that although at the time we said it seemed as if there was a plan of we're going to buy these players and they're going to work together in this sense, that plan just didn't work. I don't know if it was Montella or if it was for Sone or the people upstairs, but the players that were brought in, they just didn't work together. It's not their quality. I think as individuals, we all felt that we brought quality players. It's just as a team, it just didn't gel, and that's why I think Montella went. He failed to get them to gel, and unfortunately, Gattuso's doing the same. I know, like you say, he's brought some of the older ones in, and I think he's just trying new things, trying to get that solidity and experience in the team, thinking it would help, but it's just not working. So I don't know if it's, the players are a bit disheartened with what's gone on and they're just not putting the effort in, or if we might, like you say, might have to just scrap a few and bring some other ones in and hope that the puzzle pieces start to match together, because at the minute it's just not working at all.
Yeah, I 100% agree with everything you just said. I think for me there was a massive disappointment with certain decisions from both coaches. Obviously I was not a fan of the back three as the season progressed. For me it wasn't working, and I wish Montella had switched it earlier, and I think maybe he might even still be in a job if we had a reaction while he was still in charge. And again, like I mentioned there, the decision to bring back Montalivo, albeit it did work for the first few games, I don't feel it's the right decision with a long-term plan in mind that we need to be making. And so there's certain decisions from the coaches that I don't agree with, but you're right, the players haven't delivered. A lot of them have just, like I said, just disappointed and not delivered on expectations. So that's a disappointment. A key thing that you just mentioned there, though, do you place any blame on Mirabelli in particular, given that he was the man, given the task of putting this team together and going out and buying these players? Do you think he should come under fire as well for the players that he brought in, or again, does it come down to the coach not getting the best out of them and the players not living up to expectations?
I think up until the Bonucci signing, I think everything was going really, really well from Mirabelli's point of view. But we were really excited about Bonucci. But in retrospect, it's probably thrown off all the plans, to be honest, and messed things up a little bit. Like you say, with having to go to the back three, and maybe Montella wasn't expecting. When him and Mirabelli sat down and discussed types of players they were going to go for, maybe Bonucci didn't come up in those discussions, and it kind of threw Montella off a little bit, and he just failed to manage the situation well. But I guess, a little bit of blame has to go to Mirabelli. Like you say, he was in charge of putting together the squad. And as we just agreed, the squad of players don't work as a unit. So I guess when you're looking at it like that, if he's the guy that put that unit together, then he is to blame.
Yeah, no, I think he's kind of accepted part of the responsibility, and rightly so. I think there's a lot of parties involved that have disappointed, even though we were so optimistic over the summer. We were here sitting here talking about how great everything was, and it definitely hasn't planned out as expected. One of the other big talking points, Jace, is obviously the distraction off the pitch in terms of Milan's financial situation. Obviously, UEFA rejected their voluntary financial fair play settlement. But for me, that's a massive concern now. I think we spoke about it previously in terms of media reports and painting a negative picture and raising concerns. And we're always said, listen to Fasone. He's not lied to us. There's no reason to lie. But there's always been a sense that let's just calm down and things will play out and it'll be fine. With UEFA rejecting that settlement now, how big a concern is that for you moving forward, them getting involved and casting serious doubt over our financial position?
It is major, as you say. Like when we first heard about this plan, I know we spoke about it and we did have our concerns, but from my point of view, it was mainly down to kind of my ignorance. I really didn't know how it worked, to be honest. But seeing that it has been rejected, I think, I'm still a little bit ignorant to some of the processes, what it means. But I know we've got good financial backing. I don't know if, we might have to take some, what is it, you can't qualify for certain competitions, or you might have to take some points deductions. But I think financially we'll be fine as a club. I don't think we're going to go broke anytime soon. It just might affect things on the pitch. But hopefully, like you say, if we use the money to start putting the team right, then it shouldn't have a major effect. I think it may just delay plans for a season or two. Touch wood, it doesn't. But I really, really don't know what's going to happen in terms of our European football. Yeah. I mean, where we're sitting at the minute, it may not make a difference because we might not make it. But it might just scupper our European plans. That's the worst that I can see. I don't know if I'm being ignorant to other factors, but I think it was just going to ruin our Champions League or Europa League qualifications.
Yeah, no, I think that's the main concern. I think the initial one is that we'll probably be hit with fines or restrictions more than anything else. It's not going to be absolutely severe sort of punishments being thrown out at us. I think it's a case of fines moving forward, and then if we do qualify for Europe again, then either it's squad restrictions and very messy, very of unwanted sort of process that we're now going to have to go through. But like I say, Jay, we'll have to see how it pans out now and moving forward. But
I guess potential transfer bans as well.
Well, yeah, that's another risk as well. So, and then on top of that, considering maybe player sales to kind of bridge that gap between what we expected on the balance sheet if we qualify for the Champions League. So we may well be losing a couple of players in the summer next year, but it's certainly not gone to plan on the pitch, and it's not gone to plan off it for now. Key question now, Jace, is prediction of where we're going to finish in Serie A. So I think we both agreed at the start of the season that Napoli, Juventus would probably break away from the chasing pack and be involved in that title race. I would hope that we were going to be involved with the likes of Inter, Roma in that sort of battle for third and fourth and fifth, with Lazio as well thrown in. Where do you see us finishing this season, given the position we're in now?
It's really difficult because at the minute it seems as if we could go either way. We could either climb up 3 or 4 places, or we could drop down 3 or 4 places. But I'm trying to be optimistic, and I reckon around 7th, 8th. Hopefully, if I think, like I say, we do have the quality in the squad. It's just about getting the players to click and getting some consistency back into the team. But I think if we can do that, I can see these players going on a bit of a run. And given everything that's happened, Milan we're still a big name, and teams are a little bit fearful about coming to the San Siro. So hopefully, if we start playing some better football, that whole kind of era about the club will come back, and we'll start picking up some vital points and climbing up the table. But realistically, I'm hoping for 7th.
I'm going to go one better. I think we can get 6th still. I don't feel like I said, I think there's no point looking at the top 2, 3, Inter included. I know they're dropping off the pace a little bit now, but I think those 3 have gone. I can't see Roma dropping off significantly to give us an even sniff of top 4. Lazio, I think, decent unit, very good side actually. I think they'll take 5th. I just feel as though we should have enough to get to 6th and leapfrog the likes of Sampdoria and Atalanta. It's an ask, and obviously our form this season, I'm not confident about saying that, but I feel as though we have it in us and the quality in the squad to do it. So I can only hope for 6th at this point. I think that's the best we can hope for. Let's see
it's definitely there for the taking. Like you say, we've got the players, and if we just need that fluidity back in the team.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, talking of fluidity, let's move on to the Coppa Italia. Obviously, we had that huge win over Inter on Wednesday night.
Yeah.
For me, arguably one of the best performances of the season in terms of grit, determination, desire. Not so much the quality still. I know we did create chances, but I felt like there was a little bit of quality still missing in our performance. The key question coming out of that, though, was what does this mean for our season now? Can that be seen as a catalyst to kind of kickstart the second half of our campaign? I had reservations over saying that. I feel it's a bit early. I think if we build on it and we get a result against Fiorentina this weekend and that snowballs, we get more positive results in the weeks ahead, then I think we can say, you know what, looking back, that Inter result was massive. We've seen it before with Gattuso. We had a couple of good results and then we dropped off again the next couple of games, Benevento and Verona. How do you see it? Do you agree that it might be something, or is it far too early to kind of say that that's an absolute turning point for us?
I think given it was against Inter, I think it's hard to kind of take these derby games look at them in a wider scale of the season. I think they kind of exist in their own sort of space, because you could be in the worst form of your life, and you got a derby coming up, and suddenly you're playing like Ronaldo and Messi because it means that much. So I think you have to take this game, especially in knockout competitions, because it's always nice, to get bragging rights in the league, but then, you may get 3 points, but if you're still sitting 5 or 6 places behind, it doesn't mean as much. But when you knock your rival out of a cup, it's always great, isn't it? So I think it's kind of like you say, great performance. The quality probably still wasn't there, but you could see that they really wanted it because of who they were facing. So I think, like you say, I'm not going to take this as a catalyst for the turning point, but it shows that we do have fight in us. And maybe now it's up to, Gattuso and us as fans, I guess, to hold the players to those sort of standards, of determination. At least, if you may not have the quality, but if you go into every game with that sort of passion, we wouldn't be in this position. So hopefully the players take that from it, but I'm not banking on it at all.
Nailed it on the head there with that point about setting the standard. I think that's exactly what we can take away from it. That's what we should take away from it, is that if we play to that level and we kind of make a couple of tweaks, a couple of adjustments to bring in that quality, pair those together, and maybe it can be the sort of start of something. So we'll have to wait and see on that front. But definitely always nice to beat Inter, and very much enjoyed that game. So that was a positive. Moving forward, in terms of the bigger point on the Coppa Italia, where do you see us going? How far can we go? We've got Lazio in the semi-finals. They've not quite put their places yet, but Napoli and Juventus are on the other side of the draw. Do you see us getting past Lazio? Do you see us winning the thing? How far can we go, Jason, in the Coppa Italia?
I think we've got the players to beat Lazio. It's about whether we approach the game with the same sort of passion and desire. But I think winning a cup would be massive, especially like you say with what's going on in Serie A. I think if we could get 6th or 7th and the Coppa Italia win, I think you kind of could forgive some of what's gone on. If then we addressed the managerial situation in the summer, you'd look back and think, okay, it's not that bad, and we could go into the 2018-19 season with a little bit more optimism. Yeah. But it's always, Cup one's always funny because it kind of depends on how badly Juve and Napoli want it. Because if they really want to win the Coppa Italia, I think those two teams are at a level now where if we do meet them in the final, either one of them in the final, and I think. Maybe, I know anything can happen on a day, but I just think Napoli especially have that little bit, that quality. We saw in the game, our game against them earlier on in the season. They're just a little bit of a step ahead, aren't they? So it's always going to be a difficult one. But, touch wood, last year, English FA Cup final, everyone said Chelsea were miles ahead of Arsenal, and we all saw how that went. So maybe, you never know.
Fingers crossed, that'd be nice. A little repeat of that'd be good. I think I spoke about it a couple of weeks ago in terms of how far we could go, and I kind of said semi-finals, but I agree with your positivity. I think we can get past Lazio, and then it is a case of a one-off game. Can we just have that little edge against either Napoli or Juventus if they get there? So I think even the bonus of just getting to the final and then having that sort of pathway to the Europa League, if we do bottle it in the league, I guess that's another kind of bonus we can take away from getting to the final. So
true.
We shall see how we get on. And then a quick mention on the Europa League. I think it's a kind of conversation that's been ongoing. How realistic is it that we can win it? We've got Arsenal, Atletico Madrid, Dortmund, Napoli all involved now in this tournament. Again, do you see that we can go far, or is it a case of there's a lot of big teams in there? It's going to be very difficult.
I think we can go far, but again, this is it's a difficult one because of what winning the Europa League could do for a team like Arsenal, Atletico, Dortmund. I don't think Napoli have to worry. Atletico, Dortmund, Arsenal especially. Do you know what I mean? It's in their respective leagues. It may not be, the Europa League may be the easiest, or not easiest, but probably more realistic path to Champions League football next season. So for those three especially, they're probably going to be taking this competition very, very seriously. We saw last year with United, Mourinho was resting players in the league to focus on the Europa League, and fair to him, it paid off. You need a little bit of luck on the way, but United are playing Champions League football this year when they finished sixth, a very disappointing sixth in their own league. Arsenal especially could be looking at a sixth place league finish, and Wenger might put all his eggs in the Europa League basket. Same with Atletico is a different situation, but the league's a little bit tight, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? I think they're sitting third, aren't they?
Yep, they are.
Yeah, Real Madrid fourth. You can't imagine Real Madrid being in poor form. the whole season. You reckon they'll put a push in? So Atletico might be thinking that they want to secure some Europa League, or at least try and get to the final, so that if they need to win it, they can go give 100% and try and get back into that Champions League. But again, with cup competitions, it all comes down to the day, doesn't it? But I guess when you're playing two legs, it's a little bit different. You have to kind of look at it a bit more strategically. And I do think, like I said before, we've got the quality within the squad. It's just about getting it, getting it all to work. And as much as I was saying, Atletico, Arsenal, Dortmund, probably looking like dangerous prospects, I don't think either of them would want to draw Milan in any sort of any round. So we've got that advantage there. It's just about, like I said, setting the standards of our intensity in games. And I think if we play to a high intensity level and commit to this competition, I think on our day we could do anyone, to be honest. So it all comes down to luck.
Yep, no, I'd have to agree with that sentiment. I did hesitantly kind of say I think we could get to the last four and maybe come unstuck against the top side at that stage of the competition. But
I think the last four is very realistic. Like I said, I see those three on this. Obviously, they can draw, and we can draw a big team a little bit earlier than that. But I think if we do avoid one of those three, we could definitely get to the last four.
Absolutely. Still dreaming of that Milan Arsenal final. Just
yeah, that would be perfect.
let's hope they can only live in hope. Good stuff. Right, so moving on to Twitter comments and questions. First and foremost, thank you all for your comments and questions. Really do appreciate it, as always. We've got one from Jmart here, at Jmart2075. Best player for him so far this season has been Romagnoli. We can only improve by benching Kalinic and Abate with Conte back to health. Can't disagree with any of that. Stefano Giacomara at Fanonono. Player of the season for him has been Bonaventura so far. The worst has been Kalinic. Best moment, possibly last night against Inter for him. And the worst was the 3-0 loss to Verona last week. In terms of how we can improve, Stefano believes if we stay with the 4-3-3, have a consistent lineup moving forward with either Silva or Cutrone starting, we can definitely move in the right direction. Just before we move on, Jace, that's two people get bashing Kalinic to start with. It really hasn't panned out, has it? I think if you want to look at sort of a smaller example size of our bigger problems in terms of expectations, you have to look to him and kind of be really disappointed with how it's just not gone to plan with him at all so far this season.
Yeah, it hasn't. And I know, both of us were a little bit excited for Kalinic. We thought he'd be used. Well, I know I thought he'd be used slightly differently as a type of impact player to come on with his height and his physicality, if needed to come and grab a goal. But it's, for one, it hasn't worked for him, and I think he shouldn't be playing as much as he does, to be honest.
Yeah.
I do still feel if he was used in that sort of impact role, he could have been good for us. But like I've said, you've said, like all these comments are saying, he needs to take a back seat now and let Silva, Cutrone. Well, I say the management need to just bench him basically. Like I said, I don't think he wants to give up his spot, but yeah, they need to make a decision, and definitely Silva or Cutrone need to be starting.
Absolutely. That's what the thing with me is that I don't understand is I don't know if Silva's just absolutely terrible in training, because for Gattuso and Montella to continue playing Kalinic and not play Silva with Cutrone coming in and doing what he does, I don't understand how that change hasn't even been made already, to be honest. And like I said, J Mart's there said exactly the same thing. We can improve by benching Kalinic. Conte coming back to replace Abate long term is the obvious kind of improvement, definitely going to help us. But the Kalinic one has really kind of stumped me in terms of how he's still managing to get playing time in the starting lineup. It is
weird.
There is no explanation for me. So he's injured this weekend. I think he's not going to be able to play against his old club. So maybe that's the start of him being on the bench. We'll have to wait and see.
Yeah.
Question from Stefano. Ideally, would you prefer Bonaventura on the flank and Çalhanoğlu in the midfield, or vice versa? Also, should we focus more on Serie A or in the Europa League? For me, Jace, I think I'd go with Bonaventura on the left flank and Çalhanoğlu on the left of the midfield three. I think in terms of Bonaventura, he can take his man on when he's fully fit and confident. He's a real creative spark for us. We've seen him do it on numerous occasions the last 2 seasons. Now that he's back fit, we've seen more glimpses of it this season in the last few weeks. So for me, I think putting him out on the left wing, we become a much more attacking threat to the opposition. And then in terms of Hakan, I think he showed a glimpse against Inter of what we need from him, what he can do. He tracked back, was making great tackles, stringing things together with his passing. I think once he builds his confidence up and expresses himself a bit more, he'll do more in the final third and be more of a threat for us. So for me, I think ideally I'd want Çalhanoğlu on the left of the three, playing in almost like a box-to-box role. I think he can do both. He can be tenacious, going backwards, and then creative moving forward. So would you agree with that? Bonaventura on the left, Çalhanoğlu on the left of the midfield three?
Yeah, I 100% agree. I think you've nailed it right on the head there with, Chala. I'm just going to say Hakan. Hakan, my man Hakan, with his passing ability, I think definitely being in that sort of role, being able to, like you say, kind of go backwards as well as forwards. I think he kind of thrives in that role, and he's more of an assister than I think an out and out attacking player. So having him in that sort of midfield role, like you say, being able to do the box to box thing and pick the ball up deep and carry it forward and pick out those passes, I think would see the best out of him, and it will only improve the team, I think.
Absolutely. And then just the second part, I know you touched on it a minute ago, but then just in terms of focus on Serie A Europa League, do you think, like you mentioned with Mourinho, maybe as the season progresses, if we're still in the Europa League, if we're barely getting 6th or 7th, do we go for the trophy? Do we go for the Champions League and kind of put Serie A to the side?
I think, I think we still need to focus on the league and see how that goes. But if we do the deeper you get into the competition, I think it only makes sense to kind of focus more on the Europa League, because that caliber of players that you attract when you're in the Champions League is a lot better than what you would attract if you're in Europa, or even if you're not in Europe at all. So yeah. I think if there's a chance to get into the Champions League, we've got to take it.
Pessimistic fan at MD Coop 3. What manager would you like to see take over? I've gone simply with Antonio Conte at this point, Jace. I can't see Ancelotti coming back. I don't feel as though at the stage of his career he's in now, coupled with the position we're in currently, I just don't see that being a match. I think he'd want to go and win more trophies or take on the Italy job or do something like that, be more successful in the kind of latter stages of his career. So I'm taking Carlo out of it. For me, I don't really see any other alternatives that can come in and do the job that Conte does. I think he kind of pairs the grit that Gattuso would bring to the job, but then he also has the experience and quality to go with it and the winning track record to kind of just pair everything together and take us in where we want to be. So ideal candidate, and perhaps for me, in my opinion, the only candidate that we should be going for next summer is Conte. Do you agree with that, or you got another man that could be in consideration?
I do agree. I do agree with that. I think, like we've mentioned it before, Conte, great manager, is having a little bit of issues, or he's had a little bit of issues early this season on with Chelsea. But even all that being said, Chelsea still sit third place in the league, doing quite well. Realistically, he can catch United for second, I believe. Yeah. So he's still a good manager. I think him coming back to Italy makes a lot of sense. If we keep Bonucci in the team, I think having Conte, we saw how that worked for Italy. The two of them, that was great. So I think having someone like Conte, he could definitely get the best out of this group of players. I don't think we'd need to probably add many more signings. I think he could get this collective to work well. I'm kind of going to throw a curveball in a little bit.
Go for it.
I reckon Conte might move to Spain, potentially Real Madrid. Then that frees up Zinedine Zidane.
I like where you're going with that.
Yeah. I'm thinking Zidane, AC Milan manager. We saw what he did with Real. I know they're not doing great in the league at the minute, but was it 2 Champions Leagues? He's taken them to in 3 years?
Yeah.
So I think someone like him, it would be his style of football that he's got Real Madrid playing. I think would be perfect for Italy. We all know his caliber as a player. I think he can really help improve some of our younger players. Whether or not it would come across, I don't know, but I think it would be great to see Zidane at Milan.
I think that is a really exciting shout. I just have reservations over whether or not it's particularly in the position we're in now and the way that we're kind of falling away, if you like, rather than rising to the top, I think I'd probably be hesitant to give him the job, because I think it also very much helps when you've got class professionals like Modric, Cruz, Ronaldo, people like that to kind of help you get there. So great shout. I do love where your head's at, Jess. Yeah, we'll have to see on that one. But Conte for me, so let's see what happens. MD Coop 3, best player so far this season, Suso, and worst, guess who, Kalinic. Best moment for him was beating Inter, and the worst was the 3-0 defeat, pick one. For me, it's still the Verona one, but I hear what he's saying. It's difficult to pick one, but good stuff. Moving forward, Samir Mohammed, at Samir Mohammed 72. Start of the season for him, he thought we'd be 4th or 3rd position. Sadly, the dream season has turned into a nightmare. For his best player of the season so far, it has to be Suso. Sometimes it feels like it's Suso FC. Main creator, passer, man with the assists, goal scorer, and pretty much everything. Worst player for him is Biglia. Became worse under Montella, and he's just hopeful that he gets back to the top form. Best moment, beating Inter in extra time. Worst moment was drawing with Benevento and losing to Verona. And then just a kind of tip on what we should be doing in midfield. Samir believes that we should have Hakan, Biglia, Kessie in midfield, and Cotrone or Silva. Barini as a right back until Conte returns. And the last thing is we can't give up after conceding a goal. That seems to be our worst problem. 100% agree with that. I think Gattuso's made that point a couple of times in the last few weeks, just in terms of we don't know how to react to a setback. And that's something that we've got to change in our mentality. Jace, anything you want to disagree or agree with there? Biglia as the worst player rather than Kalinic. I think we've all been very disappointed with Biglia, but Samir still wants to see Biglia in that midfield 3 with Hakan and Kessie. I would ideally want Locatelli in the middle of that 3, but what would you prefer to go with in that instance? Do you give Biglia another chance to come good?
I think, I think the biggest disappointment is a lot of people didn't expect much from Kalinic, so his poor performances probably isn't disappointing them, but we expected a lot from Biglia. So the fact that it hasn't been working, I can see how some people will feel it's a bigger letdown. But like you say, he does have the quality, so it would be nice to see him in midfield, but at the minute I don't think he deserves to be there, so I agree with you. Whether or not he can work his way back in through impressing in training, and then obviously impressing in the games, I think that would be one way in. But at the minute, I don't think he deserves to be starting in the middle.
No, definitely not. I think sooner Locatelli's back, the better. I know people do criticise Locatelli, and I do see that. I know he has to do more. I think he does the simple things quite a lot. But I feel like I did make a point in the game against Inter in terms of just adding a different dynamic to the midfield. He's very quick on the ball. I know you see it week in, week out at Arsenal with the likes of Wilshere now and Xhaka, but I just love the fact that he takes one touch to control it. He pops it off, passes it on, and then makes a run off the ball to kind of give someone another option. Yeah. With the likes of Biglia, with Montalivo in particular, who just loves just standing in the middle and then just kind of orchestrating things but not really doing much else. I just feel like Locatelli's the fresh, young option that can do more in midfield and give us a bit of drive and a bit of class in midfield. So that's my argument. I know you didn't ask for me to make one argument for Locatelli to start, but if there was a case for an argument, then that's what I would make. So
I agree. I think we need is diamonism.
Yeah,
diamonism, if I can get my words out. Yeah, because without that, like you say, you just keep the ball in front of the opposition, but the only way you win games is by penetrating the back line, and that's what Locatelli will give you. Like you say, he moves it quickly, and that's how you get your opposition to move out of shape, and that's what creates the gaps for players like Hakan to kind of weave their balls through for the attack. So he definitely brings something different to the team. Like you say, Bigler's a bit more, he's not as dynamic. So I agree 100% with you, we need a player like Locatelli in there.
Yep. Let's hope now. We'll see if Montalivo comes back in at the weekend, but hopefully not. Question from Samir, still on the theme of just in terms of our hopes in the Serie A and Europa League. Can we get back into the top 4? Is the Europa League our only hope? And another point that he's made, of course, is on Hakan and Bonaventura in terms of where they play in their positions, which we covered. I'm just going to say, I know we've already covered it, Jace, but just top four for me is gone. I don't feel as though that needs to be a conversation anymore. I don't think that's an even possibility. Europa League is our best hope of getting back to the Champions League, but I have my doubts with that as well. So, kind of, as you pointed out, a top six finish, Coppa Italia final, winning it, obviously even better, but I think that's got to be the kind of best we can hope for this season, in my opinion. Is that fair now then?
Yeah, I wouldn't give up hope on Europa League, but like you say, it's sixth or seventh, and the Coppa Italia is probably more within our grasp and kind of more within our own sort of hands. If we want to turn up on those days, I think we can definitely, get those achievements. I think the Europa League kind of depends on us turning up, and there have been a lot of luck on our side to get past the likes of Atletico and the Arsenals.
Yeah.
And the Napolis.
Fair enough. Another point from Samir was, can we say Barini was our best player based on consistency and grinta? Jace, I've got a problem with Barini, but it comes back to management again as well. Obviously, I think, credit to you first, and let's start with that, because when we signed him
mate.
and everyone was piling in and giving him grief, you did say that it was a pretty sensible signing, you liked it, and he probably would turn things around and emerge as an important part of the squad. So.
Yeah. For 5 million, I mean, I've seen him score some blinders, and you think 5 million. If you're just going to pull him off the bench to do that, you can't complain. But to be fair, he has impressed me, because I didn't think he'll be as versatile and as hardworking as he's been. But I think for 5 mil, you can't complain.
No, I agree with you. I think in terms of what he offers the team, you know what he's going to do. He's going to run tirelessly for 90 minutes. He, like I said, the versatility is incredible. Played at right wing back, left wing, right wing. You put him in goal next, I'm sure he'll probably still do a job. But I think the problem with me is that in terms of where Gattuso, I think maybe Montella did it as well, but particularly Gattuso, in terms of playing him in an attacking role, I don't feel Barini's got the quality on a consistent basis to really play that role. And that's where the criticism and the opinion might change from fans on him, because he's being put into a position where I don't feel he can be effective and do what the team needs. So playing him at right wing back is not a problem for me. I think he will run up and down that right left flank all game. He'll do his defensive job pretty well. Putting him in those attacking positions, I just don't feel... I think you're asking for trouble in terms of him just not meeting what the standards that we need from him. So I would say he's been one of our better players, but with limitations, which is a problem. So play him at right wing back, absolutely fine. Let him carry on in that role until Conte comes back, for me, anyway.
He's definitely one of our most hard-working players.
Yeah.
I think with the position we're in now, we need players to give 100% every game, and Bruni's going to do that. Like you say, he doesn't lack for effort. It's just lacking in quality, isn't it?
Yeah, that's it. So let's see how prominent a role he has for the rest of the season. And then the last one from Samir was Cutrone or Silva. Who would you pick if you had to, Jace? Take Kalinic out of the team, stick with the 4-3-3. We've got one spot up top. Would you give it to Cutrone or Silva? Or, I know we did dabble with it for one game, I think it was, where we played Cutrone out on the left, kind of, coming in central at times as well, but pushing him out to the left and then playing Silva through the middle up top. Is that a case that can be made to play them both, or would you just go with one? And if so, who would you go with?
I personally would try and stick both of them in. But if I had to choose one, I would always start with Cutrone.
Yep.
And then if need be, I would just straight swap for Silva if it's not working. But I think Cutrone is running, is tireless. He's always pressing. And he's just got the energy, and he's a great finisher.
Yep.
So I would start him ahead of Silva, but it's just a good option to have both of them, really. One to come off the bench if need be, but I'd always start Cutrone.
Yeah, I think it's difficult, isn't it, to fit them both in, because I think if you want Bonaventura, Suso, Hakan, all these players in the side, then you can't fit everyone in. There's only 11 spots, so I think if I had to choose, I'd probably, based on form, and like you said, that just 19 years old, and that movement behind the line and finishing, the composure, the maturity. I hope we've got something special on our hands here with Cutrone. I think he's definitely shown some really good signs early on. So I think on that basis, you'd have to give it to him. I'd love to see Silva play more. Absolutely, I've made that point on Twitter numerous times, but I think for me, like you said, the edge goes to Cutrone for now at this point. So let's hope he starts against Fiorentina. Dino ACM at DinR2 on Twitter. Best player for him was Kessie, Suso or Bonaventura. Worst, don't know if you want to have a guess at this one, Jace.
Could it be Kalinic?
You'd be right. Best moment for him was Cutrone's goal against Inter. And in terms of how we can improve, he just wants more creativity and better creativity in front of goal, which is fair enough. And I agree with all his picks. And Kingsley Ofawegbu at K Ofawegbu6. Best player for him, again, Bonaventura or Suso. Worst player, Kalinic. Best moment, Derby win against Inter, and the worst moment, giving Benevento their first ever Serie A point by getting scored on in the last minute of the game from a bullet header from their goalkeeper. Sheesh. Absolutely spot on, Kingsley. I can't disagree with all that. And the key one from him, the way to improve is more Cutrone, so definitely want to see more of that. And then the question from him is, what would your ideal team be for this season in the 4-3-3? I was going to go through mine, but to be honest, it's exactly the same as Kingsley. He's got it spot on for me. So when everyone's healthy, his is Donnarumma in goal, Conti, Bonucci, Romagnoli, Rodriguez in the defence, Kessie, Locatelli and Calhanoglu in midfield, and then Suso, Cutrone and Bonaventura up top. Jace, apart from maybe making a case for Silva to come in for Cutrone, like we mentioned just then, I can't see anything wrong with Kingsley's ideal 11. I think Conti coming back at right back would be absolutely perfect. I think we desperately need him back, and he's got Locatelli in there in the midfield with Hakan. There's just nothing wrong with that team for me. I think that's spot on, isn't it?
Yeah, 100% spot on. I think, like you say, it's got good balance. It's got the quality in there. This guy should be put his name in the hat for manager, I think.
Kingsley for Milan manager. That sounds like let's get it on. He's nailed it. I'm sure there's people that will disagree with us, but like I said, for me and for you, by the sounds of it, I think that ideal lineup is absolutely spot on. So the sooner we get that from Gattuso, the better for me. We'll have to wait and see.
Yeah.
Good stuff. All right, Jace, so just very quickly to wrap things up, rattle through our picks for these categories. My player of the season so far is Suso. Do you agree with that, or can a case be made for someone else?
No, I think Suso has to be mine as well. I think, like you say, he's got the quality up front. He seems to be, at times, the only player trying to make things happen. Few great moments as well throughout the season, but yeah, definitely I think Suso is the best.
Good man. Worst player of the season?
It's hard for me. I don't want to say Kalinic, but I'm going to go with. This might be controversial. I'm going to go with Hakan.
Fair enough.
He had a spell where he was completely awful.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just lack of quality. I think it was lack of effort. Kalinic, I don't think he's not trying. I just don't think he's good enough. So for that reason, I've gone Hakan. I do think Hakan is a great player. I think he's got the potential to be great, but there was a period where he just wasn't playing well and he wasn't trying at all. So I think it's one thing I can't stand is a lazy player. So sorry, Hakan. You're my worst so far.
No, that's a fair shout. I think he's definitely up there in the conversation, so that's fair. I've actually gone for Kalinic. I'm not going to beat around the bush. I was going to go straight in there for Kalinic. Yeah, I agree with your point in terms of making an argument in his defence. I feel like most strikers would struggle in the role that he's been asked to do in terms of being isolated up top. Hasn't really got the greatest of physicality to kind of go up against two centre-halves and put himself about and make himself a nuisance. So I do feel for him. I feel like the criticism is a little bit over the top and harsh, but in terms of build-up play, linking things together, goals, obviously, I just don't feel he's added enough quality to the team. So for me, he's been the worst so far. Best and worst moments, I've gone with the Inter win and the loss to Verona. I don't know if you disagree with me, but I can't think of many of the highlights better than beating Inter in the week. Can you?
No, I agree, 100%. Knocking them out of the cup is great.
Absolutely, exactly. So that's definitely the best and worst. Obviously, there is picks. The Benevento shout there from Kingsley is worth consideration, but the loss to Verona was a real sort of painful afternoon for me, so I'm going to have to go with that one. And then just to wrap things up, Jace, how can we improve? I'm just going to say that we stick with the 4-3-3, get rid of that three-man defence for good now, and bring Locatelli, Çalhanoğlu, Silva and Cutrone into the starting lineup permanently, and I honestly believe that will result in an upturn in form. And if it doesn't work, fine, we'll write the season off and something is fundamentally wrong again. But I just want to see those changes made, and if those 4 come in, I think we can definitely improve. So echo those thoughts. Do you think those 4 in particular can definitely make a difference?
Yeah, I think they'll change the whole kind of dynamic of the team. I think we're definitely missing them, missing that quality. Like we talked about, we're just lacking a little bit of quality in certain positions. I think they'll make up that gap, and then it's just about seeing the effort from the players after that. But I think getting that quality in is definitely the most important thing.
Absolutely. Good stuff, Jace. I think that's an end to the podcast this week, unless you've got anything else you'd like to add?
No, I think we covered it all. Hopefully we see the second half of the season improve, and this is the business end really, so we need to step it up.
Absolutely, mate, absolutely. Good stuff. Thanks for your comments and questions, much appreciated as always. You can find us at Milan Talk 1 on Twitter and Facebook for more coverage throughout the remainder of the season. I'll be back tomorrow with my thoughts on the Fiorentina game and player ratings, but until next time, Jace, there's nothing left but to say goodbye to the people.
Goodbye to the people.